We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred.
With Maxwell Silverhammer.
We are nothing sacred. With cruise control. We are nothing sacred.
Oh, yes, bitches.
Here we are once again.
Nothing sacred. Yeah.
Yes, the Nothing Sacred interview, joined by the Koala. Say hi, Koala.
Join.
Hello.
Yes.
And Brett, take it away. Why don't you introduce our guest this week?
We got retired NYPD homicide detective and now author Michael O'Keefe on with us. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Well, you know what? I guess we should start out, just kind of give us a little brief rundown of your law enforcement career.
Well, actually, let's start with.
Oh, we got to thank him for his service first.
First of all, we got to thank you for your service, because we always do that with people who are first responders and people who go out and do what you guys do. So thank you very much for that. Also, to mention that the book he wrote is called Shot to Pieces. You can find it on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle as well. So that's the book he wrote. I just want to make sure we got the name of the book in first.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I know you want to jump in, Max. Max is always ready to jump in, but
he's got several other books too, like Burned to a Crisp and a bunch of others up there that you got.
Oh, awesome. Cool. I'm looking at that right now. So I'll let you guys go at it.
So yeah, man, go for it. Give us your law enforcement rundown.
Yeah, I spent almost 25 years in the NYPD. I was part of the most prolific anti-crime unit in the history of the NYPD. You guys out on the West Coast, there was a big controversy in the police department as recently as 2 years ago. Anti-crime is just plainclothes gun and robbery interdiction. It's basically a violence interdiction squad. The old police commissioner actually ended it, put all the cops back into uniform. The newest commissioner put out a hybrid of what anti-crime was now, but that kind of looks silly to me. It almost looks like a clown suit that they're wearing. The idea of uniform anti-crime is kind of ridiculous. But my particular anti-crime unit, the bad guys gave us a nickname. They called us Local Motion. And that was from a sticker that we had on the back of the unmarked car. Local Motion is actually a surfboard wax. And we decorated our car to look like a livery cab, which was prominent up in Washington Heights at the time. So since we were jumping out and locking people up with guns all the time, the bad guys started calling us Local Motion. When all was said and done, I think our best numbers were the year in 1991. We had, and keep in mind, there were only 5 of us in the unit, and we had 475 gun seizures. It's basically taking loaded guns off of people on the street, most of the time against their will. But, that's how it goes. Nobody ever topped those numbers. Nobody ever approached those numbers. So that's kind of like, that was like a feather in my cap. I was involved in a shooting in 1992 that touched off the Washington Heights riots. For the better part of a summer, I was public enemy number 1. The mayor wanted my head on a stick. Ultimately, I was cleared in the grand jury, and the department didn't really know what to do with me. I was due to be promoted to detective, but they weren't going to leave me in Washington Heights, what with all the death threats. So they buried me in Queens, which was a quieter section of the city. And it took me 3 years of threatening to take the chief hostage to go back to the barrio. I got rescued and brought to the 83rd precinct in Bushwick, Brooklyn. At the time that I got there in 1995, there were, I think, 87 homicides in a precinct that's the size of a postage stamp. So I was kind of in my element. It was a good place to learn how to investigate homicides because bodies were literally dropping from the sky dead. So I caught so many homicides over the years that when I finally retired, and I retired because of disability, I got hurt and my last knee surgery wouldn't heal. But I had worked on well over 100 homicides. So I have plenty of material to write novels about. if your milieu is murder, you know, mine is.
Well,
I was ultimately promoted to a rank called first grade detective. Now, first grade detective is the preeminent detective rank in the NYPD. There are very few of us at any given time, maybe 100. Considering there are 8,000, roughly 8,000 detectives at any given time in the NYPD, only 100 are first graders. So it's a pretty prestigious rank. And as I said, I didn't want to retire. Actually tried to con the police surgeon to let me stay on the job, but he read the surgical notes and pretty much forced my hand. I had to retire.
Well, that's what's interesting because Koala is a massage therapist. So
awesome.
I mean, I'm sure she could tell you about your pain and what you got going on there.
Well, one of the things that I do at the medical clinic where I work is we contract with the workers' comp for the police and fire department. So most of my clients currently are police officers and first responders. So it's actually a real bonus for me because I get to get them back out on their feet, or send back the notes to say, hey, they need to continue this therapy to work so that they can stay in. So it's great. And then I get to, spend time with them. So yes, thank you very much for your service because I get to hear all the stories and it's amazing what you have to go through, the good and the bad. So, yeah.
Well, my issue, as much as I enjoy a nice therapeutic massage, my issue is bone-on-bone arthritis.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't anything that they could do for it. I'm due for 2 knee replacements. I'm pushing them forward as far as I can, largely because I'm going to beat the shit out of them when I get them replaced.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're only going to replace them once. So
yeah, well, that's what we do. We do post surgery and pre-surgery. So yeah, it's a more advanced work, but it's just great to be able to help with that. So, but yeah, good luck. And yeah, it's real shitty when that happens.
So
yeah, well, it's the price you pay for treating your body like a torpedo for free.
Right.
That's true in more ways than one. Now, so that obviously you had to step back from police work. Have you always wanted to write? How did you transition from that and into becoming a novelist?
Well, let's begin with the fact that I'm Irish, and particularly New York Irish. We're born storytellers. But I actually got into writing, believe it or not, in the 7th grade. It was my first introduction to creative writing. I had an English teacher, Miss Ann Wintergurst. And I mention her name now because now she's presently the head of the literature department at St. John's University. She's now Dr. Ann Wintergurst. But when she was Miss Ann Wintergurst and I was in the 7th grade, right in the heart of puberty, she was stunning. So I paid attention.
One of those things.
Yeah, no, it was, she had my rapt attention. And when I got into the creative process and actually started writing, I realized I like doing this. And I had an opportunity to write some poetry, write some short, I wouldn't even call them short stories, but they were like vignettes. They were very short. And, I was in 7th grade with ADD, I might add. So, short is the operative word. But that was my introduction to writing, and I did it ever since. I wrote in high school. I wrote in college. I had some things published, short fiction, some plays, some poetry. So it was something that I always wanted to do, and I was an avid reader. I mean, classics, all genres. I'm a big fan of Shakespeare. I actually sneak Shakespeare into my novels. And don't credit him, by the way. I just steal his lines because they're brilliant, and he's dead, and I don't think he's going to sue me. And yeah, but while I was a police officer, my writing was pretty much constrained to report writing because I was busy, locking. I had more than 1,000 felony arrests. But in any event, when I became a detective and I started writing follow-up reports in my investigations in the New York Police Department. They're called fives, or DD5s, which is short for Detective Division Fives. They're supposed to be very very fact-based. But I found early in my detective career that if I didn't put a lot of information, all the information that I needed, and on top of which, if I didn't make them narrative stories, I wouldn't remember them when I had to testify in court, sometimes 2 and 3 years later. So I pretty much wrote my investigative reports pretty much in my narrative style that I write my novels now, and it drove my supervisors crazy. My first sergeant in the detective bureau, Gary Leone, screamed at me, goes, "Why do I need a thesaurus and a dictionary to figure out your reports?" I'm like, well, listen, the first time I tried to do it your way, I got my ass burned in court up on the stand, and that's never happening again. So you better up your game, because I'm not changing.
Right.
And because I had an incredible success record, they were like, all right, keep doing what you're doing.
That's pretty interesting.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, they probably dug reading your reports, man. They probably did like them.
It also helped you practice writing. So it kind of let you continue to kind of practice while you were actually working. You didn't even realize it. I mean, did you realize you were going to write novels later on, or write?
I always knew that I was going to write. I didn't know if they were going to be novels, screenplays, short story. I didn't know what I was going to. I just knew I was going to write. Yeah. So ultimately, I end up retiring, and first couple of months that I'm retired, I keep threatening to write a novel, and my wife got tired of hearing about it. So she bought me a laptop, threw it at me, and said, "Just write the damn thing." And a year later, Shot to Pieces was born.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So is that an autobiographical novel through a fictional character?
It is mostly autobiographical. With respect to the fictional character, Detective Patty Durr.
Right.
Well, more people know about it now because I'm telling them, but Patty Durr is actually my birth name. I was adopted.
Ah.
So it's fictional.
Kind of fictional.
Kind of fictional. Ultimately, what it is, all the police work was genuine. However, once again, going back to being Irish, an Irishman is never going to let anything as mundane as the truth get in the way of a good story. So it's one of the reasons why I make them novels, as autobiographical as they may be. I don't want to be if I want to juice up the story, I'm going to do it, and and shamelessly so.
Of course, you're trying.
There are elements in the novel that I expounded upon things, that I exaggerated certain things, but for the most part, all of the police work was genuine, including all the bullets and whatnot. But yeah, so that's
quite the. Well, what's interesting is I think I was talking to you about how when you guys were interrogating Elephant Boy, and you guys were making cracks on his weight and everything, and I'm going, holy shit, I'm surprised the ACLU wasn't crawling all up your ass, with some of the things you guys were saying to him.
Why? We were rude to him.
Well, but you know how people are now. They're such snowflakes.
Yeah, well, whatever. I don't know what to tell you. I guess I'm a dinosaur. Shitheads like they're shitheads.
Go like Paula?
But that's a good question, because I wonder if that's more of a problem out here than in New York. Did you find that to be an issue, that people would come down on you if you spoke someone as a shithead as they were, or did you get a lot of kickback from that, or did you just roll with it and you didn't care, or how is that?
No, well, with respect to interrogations and questioning someone who was being less than forthcoming, it's actually a tactic to raise their blood pressure a little bit. You want to push some hot buttons, and sometimes you have to be rude to do that. With respect to Elephant Boy, pretty much everything I wrote about him, there is a real Elephant Boy. He's dead now, but diabetes got him in the end. But,
I thought, because they're in the book, they wrote Insecto on his back, right?
He didn't actually. That's one of the things that I jazzed up. He didn't. He died in prison, but not of not from the Latin Kings. He basically died of his shitty diet.
By the way, but just to let everyone know, spoiler alerts here. So if you haven't read the books, I'm sure you might want to check them out.
Oh, yeah. We're not gonna give
don't
it
go
all
too.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to leave just little juicy bits to throw out there so that people can go check out his stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
But I attributed a bunch of crimes, hideous, heinous crimes, to Elephant Boy. He did those things. So with respect to being nice to him, that was never going to happen.
Right. Well, believe me, he deserved what he got and what you guys said to him. But I'm just surprised, because now you say the wrong thing and
well, with respect to investigation, you get a little bit of leeway, and it is a long-held and respected and accepted tactic to question people in a hard way. And whatever it is that you have to do we call it putting people through their changes. You want to get them on the emotional roller coaster, because then they start leaking some truth that they didn't ordinarily want to do. And, just calling people names. Come on, man, toughen up.
I get it. I get it. But you know how people are. Yeah, these guys are big, hardened street criminals. And then all of a sudden, they're suing for civil rights and other bullshit. I mean, case in point, you had your situation in 92 that you talked about in the book, where that stuff was going on then. Riots, police conduct and stuff like that.
Well, specifically, they were rioting because they accused me of murdering the guy in the hallway who had basically spent 10 minutes trying to murder me. With respect to the civil rights thing that the feds went after me and my anti-crime unit for 5 years, they were trying to frame an indictment for violation of civil rights with respect to unlawful search and seizure. What their basis of thought was, and what their argument was, there's no way anybody could be that good. Well, you're wrong. We were that good. And that's the reason why they impaneled 5 separate grand juries that came back no true bill. They actually alienated the juries.
Wow.
We're disinclined to believe these criminals who were basically telling tales out of school. But the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time didn't really care. We would have been a really nice head to hang on their wall.
So so during that summer, I assume this is all over the news in New York, which is obviously the largest city in the world.
Oh, it was worldwide. I actually had a friend that I worked with in the 34th precinct. He was a detective up in the detective squad. He was honeymooning in Italy. He was in Rome, and he actually called from Rome to say that he saw me on CNN Rome.
How the hell?
Burning in effigy, I might add.
How the hell does that affect you mentally? I mean, obviously you have the pressures of being a police officer. I'm sure you were on leave the whole time, but
no, actually I wasn't.
Oh wow.
They kept me out for about a week, not knowing what the hell to do with me. But at some point, they never really changed my duty status because there weren't any founded allegations. Obviously, the grand jury was going to investigate everything, but they ended up putting me back to work in the borough office answering phones.
Oh, great!
And yeah, but basically, I'm looking down the barrel. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be indicted for murder. So I don't want to be in an office. I sure don't want to answer phones. And I'm dealing with a lot of stupid, inane inquiries. So I was my polite, pleasant self on the phone. And then finally they said, all right, you're not allowed to answer the phone anymore. So I spent that entire summer basically going to work in the borough. I would work out for 3 hours down in the basement gym, and I would catch the heart of the sun. I would sunbathe on the roof. And they didn't change my duty assignment, so technically I was still in plain clothes, but I just took it to the extreme. I was wearing shorts and tank tops and flip-flops and with a gun on my hip. And it just got to the point where, and the chief, who I didn't like anyway, just couldn't stand looking at me anymore. And he told the lieutenant, tell that guy to stay out of the office. No problem, chief. I got a lot of reading done. I got a lot of working out done, and I was tan as hell. with my long hair, my beautiful long hair. And I say that because I don't have long hair anymore. I hardly have any hair anymore. It's really
Right on. Join the club.
But I was sure I was going to prison. I thought that they were going to frame me and I was going to do murder time. So I wasn't, okay, I'm not playing your game anymore. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going quietly. I'm going to do what I feel like doing. And if it steps on your toes, too bad for your toes.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do to me? And that was basically my attitude with the supervisors. I'm going to prison for murder. What are you going to
do? Like, what kind
Right?
of fear could you
How
have?
can you hurt me?
That's true. Well, but also too, you had the pressures. You had some PTSD stuff going on too.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't even realize that that's what it was that I was going through. And it was actually only after I thought it was just, you know, stress that I couldn't sleep because I'm in a world of hurt here. I'm probably going to be indicted for murder. I'm just newly engaged. And my life is going to shit at this point. So I didn't recognize that it was PTSD that was basically gnawing at me. It was only after I had been cleared and now I'm back to work in the detective squad in Queens and I get married. And fairly early in the marriage, I'm having nightmares and flashbacks in bed. I almost strangled my wife. I ripped off we had a rise post bed. I ripped off one of the posts and was swinging it over my head like a club. I almost killed her. She didn't throw a pillow at me and wake me up. I probably would have.
Jesus.
And that was when I realized that something isn't really right here. But the thing about it is back then, you're talking about 90, 92, 93.
Mm-hmm.
Police department didn't deal with PTSD. If you told them you had it, their solution was to take your guns away. Mm-hmm. And good luck getting those back once they take them. So I pretty much had to reach around to other guys who had been in gunfights and shootings of that nature that had actually killed someone to find out that what I was going through, these feelings, basically repugnance, self-repugnance, that it was natural. It's frankly taking someone else's life, irrespective of the circumstances, no matter how justified, is the most psychologically and emotionally repugnant thing you can do. It's you're destroying a member of your own species, and
also the lives of the people that they know. Like, you know, these criminals, obviously they're criminals and stuff, but they have people that love them, and, you know, they have, you know, children and stuff like that as well. I couldn't even imagine it. So just to clarify, was that the first person you had killed in the controversy, or was it, had you had issues before that?
I had shot someone before, but that was the first one that I actually killed.
Okay, so that's the difference, obviously, is that I'm sorry.
It makes all the difference in the world. I actually wrote this. I'm writing at the moment. I'm in about 3/4 done with a historical novel about World War I. And I kind of gave myself a recurrence of PTSD writing this particular chapter. My main character dives into a bomb crater, and it's already occupied by German soldiers. And he actually takes one of them out with a knife, and the other one he ends up dragging backwards into the groundwater and drowning him. And I wrote it in such a graphic thing. And then I made the point, because I made this point to a psychologist. When your adversary is so close to you that you can smell what he had on his breath for dinner, he doesn't look like your enemy. He looks like you. And psychologically, that's what you go through. You're killing a piece of yourself. And and the only people, you know, I shouldn't say that it's not a universal thing. Approximately 2% of the population can kill someone else without compunction. We call those people psychopaths.
Right.
So it was actually the suffering that you go through with PTSD is actually a symptom of you being well emotionally.
Right.
Yes. So
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, and I like how your buddy in the beginning was like, "Oh, that just sounds like pussy shit." You know, the doctor. So
was that the way it was back then? Was there a lot of that bullshit? Obviously, it's a lot less now, which you could say is a good or a bad thing, depending on how far we go down the quote unquote,
rabbit hole,
soft pendulum. But back then, it was like, oh shit, yeah, well, kill, like, was it just a lot more of that macho bullshit, which, or not necessarily macho, but
tough guy thing,
tough guy, tough girl, you're working in law enforcement, you're first responders, you're going out doing crazy shit all day. You can't deal. You know what I'm saying? Like how bad was it back then? Was it really, like you said, you couldn't even talk about it with a lot of people, right?
Well, here's the thing, that the department wasn't really in a place that their concern, and really their only concern, is civil liability for the city. So if they think that you're not emotionally right or you're emotionally unstable, they're gonna take you out of harm's way to protect themselves civilly. And they don't really care about your mental or emotional well-being. That's just a protective thing on the part of the city.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, the reason why it took so long for them to finally come to terms with the fact that this is what happens when people shoot people. There are very few cops that actually ever get into a gunfight. Mm-hmm. It's not that common. I mean, the movies make it seem like you're in 7 gunfights a week. A majority of cops go through 20 years of service without ever having to pull their gun.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that was not my reality, but there are cops that do that. They go through their whole career and they're never actually in an armed confrontation.
Well, it obviously depends on where you are. I mean, you're in New York, so I'm sure there's a lot more people there, like, or Chicago.
You know what? You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, because I was what they called a black cloud. Trouble just found me, rained on me all the time.
You're one of those guys.
Well, to be honest, your active cops, your proactive cops, are those kind of guys. They know what trouble looks like and they seek it out, and invariably the shit hits the fan and you just got to deal with the after.
The trade-off is that it probably allows you to write some kick-ass action sequences in your stuff.
That's it. I have a personal insight that lends itself well to the narrative. So
mm-hmm. Are your other books with Patty Durr as well? Is he?
Yeah, the follow-up is actually a prequel. Patty Durr appears as a 17-year-old. It's kind of my origin story.
Is that A Reckoning in Brooklyn?
That's A Reckoning in Brooklyn. I base my 2 main detectives on that as composites of other cops that kind of kept a foot up my ass. I kind of walked the razor's edge growing up. Could have ended up on either side of the law. But I was fortunate. I had some mentors, including some detectives, that kind of made me want to be a detective. So that's Patty Durr's kind of origin story. In that one, I kind of reinvent the Pizza Connection case. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Pizza Connection?
Pizza Connection. It was the largest heroin conspiracy in history. It made the French Connection look like a Girl Scout picnic.
Oh, wow.
They were shipping... The Bananas was shipping heroin all over the country in tins of frozen pizza dough and Italian bread, and to pizzerias all around the country.
Oh, wow.
I got the name The Pizza Connection.
So
I basically reimagined that conspiracy, and I solve it with my 2 detectives, Butchie and Eddie.
Oh. Wow.
And I'm probably going to write a follow-up novel with Butchie and Eddie in the future.
Man,
like really cool characters.
Buddy and Eddie.
Yeah, and then there's Burnt to a Crisp. That's the third one.
Burnt to a Crisp is a true follow-up to Shot to Pieces. That one is that's my most recent one. It's based upon an arson triple homicide I had in the 83rd precinct. It was I don't know if it was my best homicide investigation, but it was definitely my most difficult. Arson is a difficult crime to investigate. There's a lot of science involved. But the other aspect that's going on in it, I wanted to write about pretty much where my generation of cops and detectives are going through, being first responders to 9/11. I'm probably going to 25 to 40 funerals and wakes a year now. And they were all people that I was down on the pile with, that my wife and I were working with in the rescue and the recovery, who were all getting these exotic and rare cancers, and they're dying. It's, I mean, I think in Shot to Pieces, I make the point when Patty is actually first goes down to the pile, he says to his sergeant, "This is going to be our Chernobyl." Mm. And you know what? That's kind of what I said at the time to my sergeant. And I hate to say it, but I'm right. It's cancer's going through us like a scythe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially, and I'm sure breathing all that stuff in, you know what I'm saying? From all that shit.
Yeah. The EPA said the air was safe. I laugh. I'm like, it's fucking opaque. How can it be safe?
But they said it.
You know what? Well, that's the thing. Why did they say it? Because if they admitted that it was poison, they would have had to evacuate all of southern Manhattan for 6 months. Nobody would be able to go in there except with a hazmat suit, and the economy would have crashed irreparably. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they sacrificed us.
Yeah.
Man. And Koala, you'd be sure to jump in whenever you want if you got a question.
Oh no, I'm just intrigued. Because I have a question, but it's kind of not along these lines. It's actually a very simple one. How long did it take you to reach grade 1?
Took me longer than it should have. But to be perfectly honest, I got to grade 2 probably before I should have. When I first went to Brooklyn, I had the year to end all years. I was basically working on robberies, and everybody that I would lock up for pattern robberies would tell me about 1 or 2 homicides and like solving them for me. And then I'd walk them next door to the detective squad proper, and I'd be like, who has the homicide on Moffett from June? Well, I got your guy, and I got, here are your witnesses. And so basically I end up solving about 12 homicides.
Wow.
And I'm not even working homicides at this point. And my zone captain at the time, when they were asking for names for grade promotions to 2nd grade, he bumps these guys who've been detectives for 20 years and he puts me in. I'm not even a top pay as a detective yet. Wow. And I get promoted to 2nd grade.
That's pretty awesome. So
it was pretty awesome. It pissed off some people for a little while. They kind of realized, oh, all right, he did the work. He's doing the work. So, and then now I'm working on these homicides. I'm like the go-to guy now in the squad. And for 7 years, I am the #1 guy in my borough for 1st grade. I'm on, it's called the grid. It's basically, it's a list of who's next up to be promoted. And for 7 years, I'm #1 in Brooklyn North. And for 7 years, I'm getting tire tracks with people running over my head and get promoted. So I think that it's a personal problem between me and the commissioner, Ray Kelly.
Do you think that's because of what happened with the whole incident?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So it's 6 years now, and I haven't been promoted to 1st, and I just figure I'm never going to get it as long as Kelly is there, and Kelly looks like at that point like he's going to die in the position. So I'm writing off the idea of making 1st grade. His lawyer turned out was a 3-star chief. I worked with him as a uniformed cop in the 34th precinct, and I run into him at, I think, believe it or not, at a police funeral, and he says something about Commissioner Kelly, and I'm like, I got to be honest with you, Mike. I don't give a fuck what that guy has to say. And he's like, whoa, what's going on? Why don't you like Kelly? He likes you. I'm like, you don't like me. He's never gonna fucking make me a 1st grade detective.
Right.
And Mike tells me, no, you don't understand. He's old school. He will never make a 1st grade detective with less than 19 years on the job. And I'm like, that's bullshit. You're just covering for him.
Right. Because at that point, you did have more than
on the 19th anniversary
Yep.
Almost on the 19th anniversary of me swearing in, I get promoted to first grade detective.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And when I cross the stage and I have to salute the commissioner and shake his hand and get handed the plaque, he gives me that Popeye smile and says, "You didn't think this was coming, did you?" I'm like, "No, I didn't think it was." But really, it was him following his own protocol. So,
which makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, if that's something that it, like dedication requires, you know, if he feels like that, at least he was. But then again, you're thinking these years, son of a bitch, mother.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. American Express doesn't want to hear. Listen, you got to wait for me to get promoted. They want their money.
Yeah.
Right.
Great promotions come with raises.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So American Express wasn't waiting.
Right.
Right. You're American Express at this point. Like,
so are all your stories based upon just past like incidents? Like it seems like Shot to Pieces was based upon the 1992 incident, from what I'm gathering, and other stuff.
And also a homicide that I handled in Bushwick that was a contemporary gang street assassination.
So it's kind of like you pull from your own memories of cases and stuff like that for the fictional novels. Like what does it go into writing a novel, like in terms of because you know a lot of people say I want to write a novel, and it's like dude, you realize how hard that is, how many words that is, how you have to structure, like do you outline, how do you come up with it? Do you just know what do you have an outline? What's your process? I guess was what I'm asking.
I have a loose idea of a story arc. I know where I want to go. I know what subjects I want within the novel. Oftentimes I come up, I go to the gym every day. I am, because of the shit that the city and the federal government put me through in 1992, I am going to collect this pension until I'm 108 years old. So I got really healthy. And I'm in the gym every day because I'm gonna get so old that the police department has to send 2 detectives out from the pension station every month to verify I'm still alive. You actually pulled back my DNR. My son is my medical proxy. And I told him, listen, remember I did a DNR? Well, forget it. I tore that up. By the time I'm ready to die, you're already going to be on the checking account. Keep me alive by whatever means necessary. They have to pay.
Like, fuck this. I'm milking every dollar out of this shit. Right?
If I'm a fucking carrot, they got to water once a day.
That's funny, man.
Oh my god.
So now you just spend your time writing stuff. You're writing a whole bunch of different stuff. What is Not Buried Deep Enough?
Not Buried Deep Enough, believe it or not, was just an experiment. When I initially published Shot to Pieces, I used a pay-to-play publisher called Lulu, and they really didn't do anything for me, and it cost me a decent amount of money to actually publish the thing, not knowing any better. So it comes to the point now where I want to advertise this book. I want to, because most of my sales are coming from Amazon, so I want to advertise it on Amazon. But in order for me to do that, to design my own ads, I have to be made an agent of the book. The publisher basically owns the rights through Amazon with respect to advertising. So I reach out to them and I tell them, I want you to make me an agent of the book so I can advertise. And they're like, no, we don't do it that way. We design an ad campaign for you and you pay us for it. I'm like, okay, how much is that going to cost me? And with a straight face, they say $7,000. And when I pick my jaw up off the floor, I says, are you fucking out of your mind? You want me to pay you $7,000 for $147 worth of Amazon ads? You are so fucking fired, it is unbelievable. And I killed the contract on the spot. And it took me 3 weeks to reformat it and submit it myself through Amazon. But in the time being, because I didn't know how to actually upload and publish a book on Amazon, I had this short story. I call it a short novella, but it's really a short story that ran away with itself. and it's kind of my origin story. It's similar to Patty Durr's story in A Reckoning in Brooklyn, but with a little more detail. So I had this, and I didn't have anything else I could do with it. No magazine was going to publish it. It was just too long. So I put it together, and I published it on Amazon with the idea that I was going to, after I saw the results of it, I was going to take it down and, republish Shot to Pieces. The thing about it was 3,000 people bought the thing when I put it up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not taking it down. So it's still up on Amazon and people are still buying it.
Wow. It's just kind of like a piss in the wind and see what happens, right?
Yeah, I was using it as an experiment, and the experiment went fabulously better than I expected.
That's awesome. Well, now let's go here, because Koala and I actually read the book on Audible. And
first one, you got a couple more to read, man.
Yeah, we got a bunch more to read.
I love that. I love when you realize like a series is like, oh, I love this book, and then you look and it's a series. You're like, oh my god,
like this.
Yeah, you just stepped into something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I do have a question about that. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what made you? First of all, I love the way you read the dialogue. I just really enjoyed that. But what made you decide to narrate your book? Because a lot of authors hire actors to do it. Was it the Irish storyteller in you, or what was the motivation to do that?
No. I'll tell you what, Audible, when you sign up with Audible, you have the ability to open it up for auditions. Mm. And people that are narrators that do this for a living, actors and whatever. First of all, I wasn't paying anyone because I'm independent. I don't, I'm not a publishing house. I don't have the kind of money to hire Liv Schreiber, who would be perfect to narrate my books. I don't have the money to hire Lee. And I don't think he'd do it for free. I haven't asked him. But that's only because I don't know him. But I actually put Shot to Pieces was out for a year and a half for auditions. And I kept getting the worst auditions. They were horrendous. And you go back and forth with these people. You write notes for them, emails back and forth, phone calls, explaining things. And for some reason, everybody who was narrating this thing, they're understanding that Patty Durr's a Brooklyn tough guy, but they're missing the point that he has an advanced degree in English from Columbia University. Mm. So while he has a tough guy style about things, even in the way that he speaks, he's not Satch from East Side Comedy.
No, he's got a poet's heart.
So, well, that's the other thing. I know I have a profound Brooklyn accent. However, I don't speak like an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I have a vocabulary, and I can speak in complete sentences, and I can even punctuate them as I'm speaking them. So such garbage was coming back at me that finally I was like, and I actually complained to a friend who's she owns a small publishing company in Massapequa. She does a lot of self-help books, a lot of kids literature and whatnot. But I had a conversation with her. She's like, how come you're not out on Audible? I'm like, because these retards don't know how to read a book. And she says, why don't you narrate it yourself? She says, I read your books and I hear your voice. So why don't you narrate it yourself? I'm like, because I hate the sound of my voice. She's like, no, everybody hates the sound of their voice. She actually hooked me up with the microphone and the program on the computer. And I actually recorded each chapter from home and then sent it to her, and she has technical people and they edit it, and that's how the books got published on Audible.
I noticed sometimes some of it was a little inconsistent though, like there were certain ones that didn't sound, you know what I mean, it sounded like you were recording in different mics or something like that.
Yeah, you know what it was is I was just learning the equipment, and you accidentally hit a slider on these computers. I use
Yep.
I'm trying to think of the name of the program that I use. It's good, but if you mess around and you touch something, it's not consistent.
Oh, yeah.
I messed around and touched something. I didn't realize I touched it, But when I listened to the book, I was like, well, sound quality's a little off on some chapters. And I'm just...
And it doesn't detract from the listening of the book, but it's just it was just something I noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if you noticed, it does detract. So because I noticed it too.
Hey, I read through the whole book. I mean, I was just like, hey, I'm happy to have this in audio format, you know.
But going back to like the advantage of being able to read your own book, because I don't know, when I write something, I hear it in my head, like the star, you know, when I'm reading something, you know, the stars in the sky blazed, wow, blah, 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 blah. And there's a cadence to it. Yeah. Like you can actually read your own writing in the exact cadence you want to actually read it as, because you know exactly how you wanted it to come off. Because cadence is, you know, just the timing and the tempo of sentences, you know, obviously for writing. But yeah, so that's interesting that that must have made it kind of fun. How was the experience of actually doing that? Like
it was exhausting. But you know what? It was also enjoyable.
Are your other books on Audible too?
Right now I have 3 books on Audible. The short story collection, 13 stories, fractured, twisted, and put away wet. I actually hired somebody to narrate that, and I think the guy did a great job on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful voice. Clearly professional. Now, I originally signed for him to do Shot to Pieces, and we were at the point where he was actually going to start to read it. We were talking extensively. Like, he got it. He understood what I meant by an educated Brooklyn accent. And all of a sudden, he disappeared. He ghosted. It's not even that he ghosted me. He ghosted everybody. I can't find him.
Oh, wow.
I'm actually worried that something might have happened to him, but I haven't been able to find him since. And, you know, since he kind of dropped off the face of the earth, I had people, which you can relate to, they're sightless, and they wanted the Audible book. They were breaking my balls about putting it out on Audible. So finally I had to break down and take care of that.
So that's why you just went and did it on your own. Yeah, because there's a lot of books I want to read, but they're not in Audible format. You know,
right? I'm actually going to start recording the new novel, Burnt to a Crisp, as soon as I finish writing this novel that I'm working on now. But,
wow, cool. So are you on another Patty novel?
No, I actually have a completed Patty Dern novel, but I'm not publishing it. To be perfectly honest, I got canceled. I had 2 producers that were kind of negotiating against each other to option the Patty Dern series before I even had a 3rd book out. And then Derek Chauvin took a knee on George Floyd's neck, and they disappeared. Nobody is. I had a short film that I wrote the screenplay for that we had casted, we had money for, we had scouted locations. We were already getting ready to start filming it, and then that happened, and the money disappeared. And the people that I was working with, who were basically in the industry, put the knife in my back and walked away. So, yeah, I mean, all of these opportunities, nobody was touching cop material. Yeah. So, which is...
Because and it's interesting.
Well, they're all coming back now.
Yeah. Because the world's going to shit. Well, so everyone needs the cops now more than ever.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You're not writing a thriller about a social worker. You're just not.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because social workers know enough to call the cops.
Right.
When things get thrilling.
Exactly.
When things get thrilling, you need the police.
Unless you're the cahoots. You ever heard the cahoots? I'm up here in Oregon. The cahoots is like a group of people that go around to calm down on crazy people, and they don't have guns.
Oh shit!
And, you know,
is that a real? That's a real thing up there?
Yes, dude.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're very effective.
Yes, they are. They're effective.
I thought we were nuts out in California.
They're effective they're effective at de-escalating situations, so the cops don't have to be called.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Actually,
that's my point. My point is, they're like, you know what? We're cahoots. We're, like I said, they're just social workers that go out and they try to talk to people and calm. Yeah. You've heard all that bullshit.
Well, they can call themselves cahoots. I call them prey.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really where it's at.
Or naive.
Yeah. Well, not even naive. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but the cure for violence is greater violence, and that's just the way it's always been. This is human nature. This is humankind.
Right.
De-escalation. If things get violent, we're already past that.
Exactly.
We've hit critical mass.
Exactly.
Right. At that point.
Exactly.
So all that's going to stop
bets
the
are
violence
off.
is violence.
Once a punch is thrown or something happens, all bets are off. It's sort of, yep.
Anyway, largely because and the next Patty Durr novel is just, it's going to break people's hearts. But I'm not publishing it right away. My next novel is actually going to be a 1970s college basketball point shaving thriller. Involving the mafia and the corrupt federal government and May-December romance. And it's awesome. It's called Covering the Spread.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to look out for that one then.
Well, you're gonna have to wait a little while because I'm sick of the hustle. I'm doing pretty good as an independent author, but I'm not doing Nelson DeMille good, and that's the goal. And I'm never going to get there without an agent and a publishing house and a publisher. I'm taking my time. I'm actually, at the moment, I'm waiting to get the book back from my editor. And I'm working on my queries. I'm picking agents, specific agents to send it to. I'm packaging it professionally. Yeah. And ostensibly, I'm kind of done with being independent. I'm sick of it. And the other thing is COVID crushed me because I didn't have any in-person events. So I probably lost in excess of $50,000 to $60,000.
Oh, sure.
In potential sales. I didn't lose any money. I didn't make money.
Make the money that you could have at that point.
Right.
Speaking of just being independent and stuff like that, how and wanting to go there, but how do you? Because there has to be a way to keep the joy of writing. Because obviously you love to write. You've been doing it for years, and you're from what I'm reading about from these reviews, you're quite good at it. Because there's some killer reviews, man. Like how do you balance that, man? Because I do music stuff. I'm a songwriter and stuff, and I make songs and I throw them out there, and you don't get the response you want to get, and you get discouraged because you're hoping for something more, but you don't. You know what I'm talking about? Like, how do you balance that? Like,
you know what? I spend what I can for things like advertising. For my 3 novels, if you go on my website, the first 3 things that come up are like 37-second video trailers for the book. And I work with a friend of mine who's a filmmaker. And these are excellent advertising. Like when I go to a book event and people come up and they're like, what's the book about? I'm like, do you have your cell phone? And I actually put them on my website and I'm like, press play. And anybody who sees one of these videos is buying all 3 books. They got to have Patty Durr.
Nice.
So I got a lot of bang, considering they cost me about $1,000 each to make. I get a lot of bang for my buck for that, and I put them on frequently on Facebook, on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. So between that, advertising on Amazon, I do some BookBub ads. The problem that I'm having is I can't get editorial reviews from, for instance, the New York Times, any of the major publications around the country. I can't even get my local paper, Long Island Newsday, to review my book because I don't have an agent or a publisher or a publicist pushing it. So they won't even take a free book from me.
Oh, wow. So it's unsolicited material at that point, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. I mean, even if I reach out to them, send them an email, they're like, no, thank you at this time.
That's the frustrating part about trying to be creative and trying to actually get it out there to show that what you can do.
Yeah, well, I
can get it out there unless you know people or whatever.
Right.
I have educated readers. Prime example, and I hesitate to highlight him because we have the same last name, but his name is Dr. James O'Keefe, and at one time he was the commissioner of training in the New York Police Department. He's now the provost at St. John's University for their criminal justice and anti-terrorism school at St. John's University, and he's actually entered my books into the curriculum. Anybody that's taking criminal justice, it's not mandatory reading, which I really was hoping he would do, but it's requested. It's recommended reading. It's not required reading. But he's constantly saying, "How come Hollywood hasn't found you yet? These are movies." I'm like, well, if you know a producer who wants to throw 6 figures at me, by all means, James, send them my way.
Right.
I don't have that kind of reach yet, and I don't know how to get it myself. I need the assistance of the established publishing community to do that for me.
That's boy, it's like a block wall, you know, and sometimes I feel that way with our podcast too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, we'd like to get more people, but you know, we don't want to lick in the ass and we don't want to pay any money. And
you don't want it to stop being what it is, which
authentic.
is
Right.
authentic and fun. And from we want to keep it real. You know, we don't want to be to lose the plot, you know,
Right.
which is you're doing it because you're expressing yourself. But you know, obviously, you know, expressing you want other people to enjoy it, but to lose sight of that, man, that's when shit goes to, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, you want to maintain your vision. You don't want it
Yeah.
to be unrecognizable, which can happen. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there are authors that complain that their publisher makes them put shit books out.
Yeah.
Well,
That just drives me crazy. I couldn't imagine doing a song. All right, you're gonna make a song. I don't want to make a song about this. You're gonna make a song about beefcake, you know, whatever, fucking meatloaf, you know, and it's gonna be the next big, you know, like I don't know. And it's like someone I guarantee you that talking to you for the last hour, you ain't gonna take that shit.
No. Somebody starts
No,
telling you
I'm not. You know, I'm not.
Yeah,
well, here's
exactly.
the thing. I am never going to be woke.
Thank
Oh,
God.
I'm
That's-
never going to be woke.
Thank God.
that's the other thing. I got to tell you this real quick. So I told my buddy that when you made the statement, being woke will make you broke. And,
Woke goes broke. Yep.
and he goes, man, does he make a shirt that says that? I was like, no, unfortunately. He's like, dude, if he does, I'll buy a bunch of them.
That's the biggest slogan for woke ever. Go woke, get broke.
I think, to be honest, I think Elon Musk coined that phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a big Elon Musk fan.
Dude, the guy is he's the biggest troll. Whether he's trolling, but he's trolling to make a point.
But the thing about it is, his trolls are brilliant.
Yeah, it's awesome.
They're like
What he's doing
awesome.
with- yeah.
Wow, I wish I said that.
What he's doing with Twitter right now is just fantastic. It's just that they've gone ape shit, man. People losing their shit, man.
And the thing about it is, he may not even buy the thing.
Yeah, no, and now there's like
he's
stepping
put
back.
them through their changes. He's reinvented them.
Yeah,
Right. They're
And
still
then-
relevant.
And then on a whim, he can say, you know what? I don't want the piece of shit. And then they're going out of business.
Yeah.
And then they're going out of business.
Like he's exposing shareholder fraud. All these people are losing their shit. Like thousands of people are getting their accounts. Like thousands of followers suddenly appear on conservative accounts.
Yeah,
it's just like the last month has been really interesting in that way.
Is he kind of like, what's that guy's name? Alex. He goes and he does these.
Alex Jones?
No, not Alex Jones. It's a kid. He's like in his 20s.
No. Elon Musk is the owner of Tesla, man.
Oh, it's the test. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta step up, bro. He's like he's a huge dude, man. In terms of like if you want to know Elon Musk, because he's just in a bunch of different stuff. So
Man, I'll have to check into him.
cutting edge stuff.
Or don't, because news. Actually, Brett Max has a great philosophy in some ways. It's to stay away from the news sometimes, man, because it's just so much of it is bullshit. Anyway.
Oh, it'll just piss you off.
Yeah,
well, that's the nice thing about Elon Musk. He's not news. He's commentary.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
That's
like
true.
he's commenting on the news and calling bullshit on it.
Right.
And that's just awesome.
Well, it's like our Jericho Green or those guys. They're just commenting
Yeah.
on stuff. Which is cool.
So you're still in the New York area. Just a real quick last question. I don't know if we could probably wrap up here. But how is it living? How is it living there now? I mean, especially the last couple of years, the way the city has gone.
Well, it's not even the city. The state is a mess. Where I am, however, is a nice suburban community. I'm Nassau County in Long Island. We border the city at Queens. I still have to go into Manhattan occasionally for podcasts, radio shows, sometimes some business in Manhattan. And when I retired, I pretty much put my guns in the safe and didn't take them out again. When I go into Manhattan now, I go strapped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I'm not getting pushed in front of the train. I'm going to ventilate someone before that happens.
Right.
It's the city. Bill de Blasio may very well have murdered New York City. He was the previous mayor. We do not really have a crime problem. We have a crazy homeless problem. And by crazy homeless, I'm not using crazy as an adjective.
Yeah, they're crazy.
I mean, they're insane.
Yep.
And they're living on the streets and acting out.
Yep.
And he's removed any ability whatsoever to force these people into the treatment that they need for their own good under the guise that you're violating their rights. I'm sorry, but if you're insane, you do not have rights to stay insane. You've got to get medicated or locked up.
If you're a danger
to everyone.
Yeah.
It's at this point you're not competent. Like you couldn't stand trial. You couldn't, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of
see, that's the other problem. When they do act out and they commit horrendous violent crimes, they're ducking prosecution because they're not culpable because of their mental state, and then they end up getting locked up in the hospital. The next step that's going to happen, because the ACLU is already doing it, they're suing on behalf of these people to have them released back into the streets to kill more people.
Jesus.
So Eric Adams, I have a personal involvement with him from back when he claims he was a cop. And while he was on my job, he didn't make a pimple on a real cop's ass.
Damn.
He got elected saying all the right things, but he is utterly powerless and he will not implement them. He does not have any personal courage. He, by the way, his entire rise to fame was race baiting. He was basically one of Al Sharpton's disciples.
Those guys.
Oh yeah.
When he was in the police department, we have groups like the Emerald Society, the Columbia Association, and they're like ethnic fraternal organizations. And the African American police officers are the Guardians. And the Guardians were, and you know what, at the time when they first came out, rightly so, they were calling for recognition and promotions and what they deserved, basically. They felt like they were being underrepresented for their membership. And they were right to a great extent, pretty much up until the late 80s. Eric Adams was a member of that organization. And while they were considered the most radical organization within the police department, they weren't radical enough for him. So he invented this organization called 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. Now think about that statement.
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands of Black police officers in New York City. Are you saying only 100 of them care?
Right.
No, these are the
What is wrong with you?
You're ridiculous.
Yeah, there's an organization out here called Black Police Association, I believe it is.
Okay.
So and I think they kind of do what you're talking about. But there's always
every organization. The point of them is, apart from being a social group, is they advocate on behalf of their own members, and basically members of the organization who go up the ladder and get promoted. There's a back channel now where you can recommend people who are capable, who are competent for promotion slots. Hey, listen, he's on the grid, promote him. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Talent rises correctly that way.
Right.
If, however, you have an organization that sues and files civil rights violations because their guy who's never made an arrest in his career didn't make detective.
Well, I'm sure you were
That's
a part
wrong.
of. I'm sure, Michael, you were a part of the Irish American Police League.
No, as a matter of fact,
is that one of those?
I quit that. No, it's actually called the Emerald Society. And I quit that organization because
there is one. Okay, cool.
There is, yeah. It's actually one of the oldest fraternal groups in the police department.
Interesting.
In 1992, I quit them because even though I was a dues-paying member since 1986, they took David Dinkins' side with respect to indicting me for murder.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
So I never went back. And whenever they request me to come to a meeting, to speak at an event, I basically tell them not just to go fuck themselves, but how hard to do it and what they can use to do it with. I am the one organization that I am still a member, apart from the DEA, which is the Detectives Endowment Association. I'm a member of the Honor Legion. And the Honor Legion is the oldest fraternal organization in the police department, and it's the only one that you have to earn your way in. It's you have to have been awarded a commendation or above just to apply. And it's a great, it benefits the widows and orphans, and it's just an impressive and historical organization to belong to. When I was a rookie cop, when I had gotten into my first gunfight, and my partner and I were awarded commendations, I think I had 2 years on the job at the time. And we went to our first meeting, and I'm looking around, and I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know what it is that I'm really looking at. But I'm in awe. And an old timer who turns out I came on the job with his son, but he was an old time detective from Manhattan South Homicide. And he says, "It's a lot to take in, isn't it, kid?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, it is. I don't know what to say." He goes, "Of course you don't. You're in a room full of killers." I'm like, wow, that's what those hard eyes are.
Now, is this you talked about that Tommy character in the book, right? Was this his dad?
No, it wasn't. I'm trying to think. Billy.
Because you knew his dad too. I remember that. That was a thing. You know.
I kind of. I based that on a couple.
Remember, it's a fictional character.
Tommy Crow actually. The homicide that I described where Tommy Crow was killed was actually police officer Michael Busick in the 34th precinct. But Mike was young like me. He didn't have a whole hell of a lot more time than me, and he didn't live long enough to have a kid. I have worked with kids along the way. I've actually taken them under my wing, who are the sons of slain police officers. So Tommy Crow is kind of a composite of those cops.
Oh, okay.
But those cops to this day on the job, most of them are detectives now, refer to themselves as, "I'm one of Mike O'Keefe's guys."
Oh, wow.
That is the highest praise I've ever gotten.
Right. Even you're not even there anymore, and they're saying we're one of Michael O'Keefe's guys, you know?
Well, my name is still known. I'm still known. So.
Wow. Well, do you guys have anything else? Either of you?
No, I don't think so.
I think this has been a fantastic interview.
It has been. Well, give us all your contact info, anything you want people to know, where they can get your books, all that stuff.
The easiest way to get your books is to go on my website, michaelokeefeauthor.com. And once you get on, there's a lot of cool stuff for you to look at and listen to and to read. I have samples of all the books, but if you scroll down, there's a button that's a link to my Amazon page where all my novels and all of my books appear. And that's the easiest way to get them. It'll take you right to the Amazon page, and you can get them all right there.
Nice. So it's michaelokeefeauthor.com.
Yep. No caps, no punctuation, no spaces. Just right there. Straight
up. Well, man, we want to thank you again for coming on, spending this time with us, because, you could probably be doing some better stuff right now.
Well, I'm an old guy, and it's late in New York. I'd probably be in bed already. So this was good.
Seriously, thank you very much for your time and your previous service.
Yep.
Like I said, check out. He's got the web. I'm on the website right now, and thank you for joining us. I guess we can wrap this up as we always do. All right. So this has been the Nothing Sacred interview with Michael O'Keefe. I'm Cruise Control.
And I'm Maxwell Silverhammer.
And I'm Koala.
And
And that's
the story,
there, bitches.